All right, so what are we going to try and do today? So one, we really want to understand and discuss the skills gap and training needs of our first time and early career job seekers and all of those people who are transitioning to careers in the construction industry. We want to look and think about different strategies to grow and diversify and upskill the Tri-County workforce in both building science and energy efficiency. We want to look at how we can apply high road principles for inclusion for our hard to reach workers. And that's a question, a lot of people, what is hard to reach workers? So that could be everything from women who may not participate as often in this, although you look at this group and we have a great number of women involved, thank you. But also people speak English as a second language, people who have just not been aware of the possibilities and opportunities for construction as a career. So that's one of the big pieces here we'll be talking about, is really understanding and articulating how construction jobs, building jobs in energy efficiency are great careers and have a pathway for people to go forward on. And then connecting with our workers, training providers, and high road employers in supporting economic resilience, adaptation to climate and energy efficiency. So I think there's a lot we're going to try and get out of this. And we know that this is a long process of going and building our workforce. And so I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this in the future. Next. Okay, so let me just go over our agenda today. So we are primarily going to be having conversations. We're going to do some context setting and some data about the workforce in the Tri-County area. We really want to, even in this remote and virtual world, have some opportunities for you guys to see each other and to network. So we'll do some early breakouts, and then we're going to have a speaker meet and greet at the very end of the meeting. So if you want to continue on beyond our actual closing, that's an opportunity for you to actually talk to our speakers individually. We're going to have a nice keynote address to really give us a sense of what does high roads mean. That's going to be part of our discussion today, is really understanding what that means and then translating that into our Tri-County workforce. And then we have 4 dynamic individuals who will be part of a panel conversation. We'll get rid of the PowerPoint at that point, and we'll be able to see each other and have a good conversation. We have some set questions that we are going to ask, but we really encourage you in our audience to offer those questions and to get some really good knowledge going there. Let's see, I think that's it for that. And let's go on to the next slide, Jordan. I think we're missing one right before that. We're going to do a breakout first. I think we moved. Oh, you want me to, sorry. We're going to introduce our keynote speakers, Carol Zabin. She's with the Green Economy Program at UC Berkeley Labor Center. She will be giving us that overview. In the next slide. We have here are 4 fantastic panelists. So we have people both covering the local area. So Lisa Eklund at the Ventura County Contractors Association and Celine Park at Moore Park College are local to the Tri-County. And then we have John Hughes as well with IBEW, NECA, Labor Management Cooperative Committee. He's going to tell you more about that. And then from the statewide perspective, Shreyas Jakar from the California Workforce Development Board. Each of them are going to provide various different perspectives and ideas about how this high roads workforce can work here in the Tri-County area. Next. All right, so this is our first stop at trying to introduce ourselves to one another, since we're too big of a group to do that otherwise. And we want you obviously to tell your people in your break room who you are, your name, what your role is. But then we want you to ask the question is, do you know what a high road workforce means to you? And if so, what does that mean? Again, we've talked to a lot of people as we're developing this, it means different things to different people. So this is an opportunity for us to explore that. And I have one question that I'm just going to note real quick that's in our chat, like who exactly is 3C-REN? And Beverly, you're going to hear a lot about who 3C-REN is in just a bit. So hold on and I will share that with you. But it means the Tri-County Regional Energy Network. Let's see, we are going to have our first breakout. All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope we all got a chance to say hi to one another. And as I said to the first folks here, if you have something really interesting that you found out about somebody who you talked to or an idea about the high road, please go ahead and share it on the chat. And that'd be just great because we will keep this going forward. All right, so let's go ahead and move to our next slide. And I want to introduce John Greiser from the 3C-REN. He is going to give us some context of what is 3C-REN. And for this process, he is the co-director of the 3C-REN program. All right, John, are you ready?
I am ready. My mute is off.
All right.
Thanks, Mindy. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're super excited about our event today, focused on upskilling, growing, and diversifying our region's energy efficiency workforce. As Mindy noted, I'm John Greiser. I'm a co-director for 3C-REN from the county of San Luis Obispo. I believe my colleagues, my co-director colleagues, from the counties of Ventura and Santa Barbara are also on the call this morning, Alejandra Tellez and Ashley Watkins. So somebody asked what 3C-REN is, and I guess that's my job to make sure I give a quick overview of that. So before we hear from our great keynote speaker this morning, I'd like to share a little bit about 3C-REN. My colleague, Sean Burns, will tell you more about our programs and services near the end of this morning's event. Next slide, please. Actually, this one will work. Thanks, Jordan. One back. Perfect. So 3C-REN, AKA the Tri-County Regional Energy Network, is a collaborative partnership between 3 local government agencies, the counties of San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura. Our purpose is to improve energy efficiency in our region by offering customized programs and services to households and building professionals, including industry training events and forums such as this one, providing technical and soft skill trainings and certifications, energy code and California Green Building Standard compliance support, and free and discounted upgrades that reduce energy use and costs and increase the comfort and safety of the homes in our region. Next slide, please. 3C-REN is funded by ratepayer dollars that we all pay every month via our utility bills. I encourage folks to take out a magnifying glass at some point this weekend and go to somewhere to page 4 or 6 of their utility bill, and you'll see what I'm referring to in the bottom. And that's basically how ratepayer programs such as ours are ultimately funded. So our programs, essentially, our programs and services return these ratepayer dollars to our local region and our economy through programs and services. In this way, our programs are an investment in our community, which has historically missed out on some of these ratepayer funds. Through our programs, we help strengthen industries within our economy, creating a well-trained workforce that can meet the growing demand and requirement for energy efficient, high-performing buildings that meet or exceed state code requirements. Next slide. 3C-REN takes a holistic approach to improving energy efficiency in our region by engaging all sectors. We engage public sector staff from our local building departments, including plans examiners and building inspectors, as well as private sector building professionals, including architects, contractors, engineers, and real estate professionals. We also work with the broader community, like families shown here, especially those that are historically underserved. These comprehensive services help us reduce energy use and greenhouse gas emissions in our community and support and build capacity within the building industry. Next slide. So when our team discussed the best way to explain why we chose the topic and concept for today's event, we considered describing the problems we're attempting to solve, or perhaps having a builder or an architect tell a story from personal experience. Ultimately, however, we settled on a simple question that we're going to give all of you somewhere around 30 seconds to answer via Zoom. Mr. Burns, please launch our poll this morning. Okay, interesting. And a little bit surprising, and perhaps a little bit not surprising. We all can see, I guess Zoom shows us that the orange line is the one. Have you ever had trouble finding someone with the right skills or training is our leading answer. Anywho, based on the fact that very few of you answered none of these apply to me, and that we have that over 100 people registered for this event and 66 have already joined us for a Friday morning training, I'm going to safely assume that we chose a topic that resonates with most, if not all of you, and that you've all had a personal experience that will resonate with what our speakers will share with you today. And that this topic is important to you and timely for our region and its future. Mindy, back to you.
Great, thanks, Jordan. Can you go to the next slide? So I want to introduce Carol Zabin. I mentioned before, she's from the Green Economy Program at UC Berkeley Labor Center. And I first heard about Carol years ago after looking through a very comprehensive report on the needs assessments for the California workforce and energy efficiency. That's not the right title, can't remember it. But what it really was clear about is how understanding Carol is and her team is of what is going on in California in this industry, and how we need to think about changing and reorienting. And obviously we've learned a ton over the last 10 years. We had lots of information from ARA, and now we are in a new era, new wave of policies, politics, and everything else. And so Carol, I want to turn this over to you to teach us a little bit about what we need to know about the high roads workforce. Carol, you're on mute. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Mindy, and thank you to all the organizers of this event. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you about this report that has been a long time coming, and I do think represents a shift in the way California state government is looking at its climate investments and really how to support workers as we transition over time to a carbon neutral economy to meet our greenhouse gas emissions goals. Next slide. So I am reporting on a report. This report was legislatively mandated in AB 398 in 2017, which was the bill that extended our cap and trade program and was really one of the most important climate bills that we've passed recently. And for the first time, the legislature asked for a set of recommendations to help ensure that workers would be protected and supported during the implementation of our comprehensive climate policies. It was the first time they really had an explicit focus on job quality and job access, not just, hey, we're going to create a bunch of jobs. And so what the report does is recommend job policy levers, including training, but training isn't the key thing, that can be incorporated into existing and future climate policies. So next slide. And I am going to talk, give give kind of a comprehensive whole look at our full climate policy, which is a broad portfolio affecting a lot of different sectors. And then I will drill down to energy efficiency, but I do think it's important to start with the bigger picture. And so what the report does, and I really hope it becomes a reference document, is that it has 3 tools chapters that show how policy and state action and agency action can support workers. And the first is really on the demand side of the labor market. That is, what kinds of jobs are getting created in these mission critical climate industries, and goes through the different kinds of labor standards that can be added to any climate investment to ensure that good jobs are created, and that there are paths of access so that we can build an inclusive workforce. The second is the training strategies, and I know that's the side that I think most of you have been involved in, maybe not all. And then the third tool is what we do with workers in declining industries who've been dependent particularly on the fossil fuel industries. And then we take those tools and apply them to the scoping plan, which I think most of you know is really the state's climate implementation plan, and it covers all the sectors in the economy and really focuses on the big ones that are big greenhouse gas emitters, and where there is a lot of policy to reduce those emissions, and that's energy, transportation, industry, wastewater, and agriculture and natural lands. And so what the report does, it doesn't count jobs, net job, job growth, job loss, but instead it's a strategy document that looks at first, what are the climate policies? And there are a bunch of different policies, from mandates like building code to public investment like weatherization programs to incentives, which is a lot of what the energy efficiency programs do, and our market program, the cap and trade. And it traces those down to industries, which I was so pleased that Mindy talked about energy efficiency right off the bat as part of the construction industry, rather than something separate. But there are a whole bunch of industries that are impacted by climate policy. And the key thing to note here for the high road and for equity is that we live in an economy nationally and in California, which has been so exposed in the coronavirus period, where a full third of our workers are in low-wage jobs, that is not family supporting jobs. So we have to be concerned because climate policy gets imposed on those industries and isn't necessarily going to shape them any differently than the condition that already exists. And next slide. Oh, I've been forgetting to, yeah, next slide. That was this, I've been forgetting to move the slides, so I will try to do that. I'm moving them on my computer, but that's not on Sean's computer or whoever it is, so excuse me. So this slide really shows, again, all the climate sectors where we have the major climate policies. And if you look where that arrow and yellow is, you can see energy efficiency, which is really part of the residential and non-residential construction industry. And the last column shows the number or the percentage of blue collar jobs. And I just think this is extremely important because you can see how high a percentage that is. I mean, there are building inspectors, there are architects and engineers, there's salespeople, but the bulk of the work in energy efficiency is performed by blue collar workers. And that's important because blue collar jobs, some of them are good, but a lot of them aren't. And so we have to pay attention to the quality of jobs. So next slide. And we've seen in some cases what we call high road success. And what we mean by this is not only success in terms of reducing our emissions, but also producing good jobs. And the most successful is the Renewable Portfolio Standard policy, which drove in a huge increase in renewable sources of energy, of electricity, and was basically produced under project labor agreements. That is essentially union agreements that brought in the state certified apprenticeship program, created good middle-class jobs with careers, with big investments in training, and resulted in the inclusion of disadvantaged workers. Some of those are in your area. The coast does have quite a bit of those solar farms and the big utility scale renewables that have both really helped our emissions, but also help create good jobs. We also have a whole bunch of sectors that aren't, where that success has not been replicated. And so the point is we have to be intentional about protecting workers and creating good jobs. We can't leave it to the market, or as Tim Rainey of the Workforce Board says, we just will get what we got. Okay. And this slide simply shows that where we really see the big emissions drop is in electric power. Nowhere else, unfortunately, really yet. And that's also where we've been able to produce good jobs. So next slide. Okay, so back to the tools. What are the tools that we have to ensure that as we implement our climate policy, we also create good jobs? And the key tools are really on the demand side. That is not the supply of workers, not the preparation of workers, but rather what kinds of jobs get created. So every time, for example, 3C-REN spends some of that ratepayer funds that John talked about, are they creating good jobs? Are they working with contractors who are able to invest in their workforce and pay good wages? Or are they letting the market simply determine who gets the work? And so again, in energy efficiency, this really is about construction. And there are particular policies and practices in the construction market that really do ensure good middle-class wages. And it's really based on state certified apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is really I just can't emphasize more how important leaning on the apprenticeship system is. And so there's different mechanisms that incorporate apprenticeship, project labor agreements, which essentially put union standards and ensure prevailing wage, and the investment in the training fund for every hour worked, which is how collective bargaining in construction works. And when we add targeted hire, that is goals for local community folks, goals for folks with hiring goals for folks with barriers to employment, we have seen great success. The skilled and trained workforce policy is another similar policy that requires a certain percentage of apprentices be hired. Prevailing wage, responsible contractor requirements, all of these really say when you spend public money or ratepayer money, which is essentially public money in the way it operates, are you investing in good jobs? Are you putting a bar on the contractors who can participate, a minimum bar where they are willing and able to meet minimum requirements in terms of wages, in terms of benefits, in terms of other accountability to the public and benefits to the public. Next slide. Let's see. Energy efficiency has been one of the low-wage trouble spots where the kind of labor standards I just described help and can improve jobs. It's not the only one. Don't worry about that. Okay, so I just talked about the demand side of the labor market, and now I want to talk a couple minutes about the supply side, that is workforce preparation. That's what I think most of you are involved in. And we do know that, you know, again, a lot of the lessons learned from the Recovery Act and the last economic crisis where we had substantial stimulus to in the green area is that it ended up not being enough, even though the intentions were really, really good, to simply fund quote unquote green training. And I think even I don't know your area well, but I know all over the state there were all of a sudden a bunch of solar programs, a bunch of energy efficiency programs in the community colleges, and they didn't always lead to jobs, and they didn't always lead to good jobs or careers. And so we know now, I think, and I heard that in my breakout room already, a real recognition that you have to start with the jobs and partner with employers and customize your training by industry. And really that in construction, I want to say it one more time, apprenticeship is the key. And community colleges participate in apprenticeship in two ways. One is they often run pre-apprenticeship programs that can pull in and make more inclusive apprenticeship by preparing folks who haven't had good opportunities and do have barriers to employment, preparing them to be successful in apprenticeship. And two, community colleges do administer the classroom training funds that the state provides. Most of apprenticeship is funded by the industry, but the state provides some funding for the classroom portion, and that's administered by the community colleges. I do want to just say that sometimes some community colleges really try to run parallel programs that don't, that in the end up, even with good intentions, competing with apprenticeship and putting public money into training for folks who end up, if they're lucky enough to get a job, getting a not so great job that isn't really a career in construction with the full-blown training that apprenticeship implies or that it represents. The state has wonderful new, or not so new anymore, a very deep investment and commitment to apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship, and has been funding pre-apprenticeship all over the state, with the condition that these apprenticeship programs partner with the local building trades councils and the existing trades apprenticeship programs, union and non-union, but the union ones graduate 95% of the apprentice graduates. So it really ends up being the union ones because they're the ones who have the most successful apprenticeship programs. And so they've done that through the high road construction careers that Shreyas will talk about, I'm sure. And, you know, I do want to say, and how much more time do I have, Mindy? I lost.
You have about 6-7 minutes.
Okay, great, thanks.
And then is this the right slide? Just making sure that we're on this right slide here.
No, you're one back. Yeah, one back, sorry. It's, I'm sorry, I can't see it because I'm looking at mine. Yeah, that's the one. So I'm just going to say one more thing here. Sorry, I'm a little bit Zoom, not too savvy. I do want to really, really acknowledge that many training programs, including in community colleges and community-based training, are stuck in a very, very challenging position, because with all the good intentions, with all the high quality training and outreach and support for folks who need it, they don't have the structural partnership, the structural relationship with high road employers, that is, and there aren't enough good jobs to go around. And so again, with all the good intentions, where do you send your folks? And I think the answer to that, which is, admittedly not completely satisfactory, is that over time, you have to build partnership with the building trades councils in your area to ensure that all public investment in public works and construction goes under project labor agreements or has these skilled and trained policies, so that you open up more apprenticeship slots, because the high road segment of the construction industry is expanding. And what we've seen in my area, in the Bay Area, for example, the community college teachers, professors, and community college leaders have really partnered with labor to have PLAs on their own construction. And that shifts that creates more work, but it also shifts the commitment of your local electeds to project labor agreements, to working with the unions, to working with labor, not just because it's unions and they are pro or anti-labor, but because those are the folks who end up producing careers in the construction trades and increasing the number of apprenticeship slots. And then community colleges can help support that in their training programs, again, either through pre-apprenticeship or through the classroom training. So choose your partners wisely.
Carol, do we want to move to the next slide? I just want to make sure we have a few minutes here for Q&A.
Oh, okay.
You have this great one that is on the high roads and low roads. I'm not sure if you want to hit those key points here.
I would like to go a little bit back to the energy efficiency recommendations, and just again want to reiterate that the REN, the 3C-REN, who ends up directing some of that investment money to, for example, low-income weatherization type programs, should at a minimum have a wage floor to ensure living wages for the contractors that they hire or that they support to do the low-income weather energy efficiency work, and ideally have those their training programs fit into a pre-apprenticeship model, so that again apprenticeship is supported rather than competed against. So yes, the last slide. This is just an illustration, and I'm sure you'll have access to this PowerPoint, really, of what I just said, is how climate policies end up impacting the labor market. And we have a choice of whether to take a high road approach by ensuring that the jobs are good, ensuring that the training fits into a good job strategy, and ensuring also that workers in declining industries are supported. So I will stop there. I have not been able to read the chat questions as I've been going along, but
That's right. I got it, Carol. I'll do that for you. I'll do a translation. There's some good comments in there. Let's actually keep that other slide up, Jordan. I just think that has some good info as people are watching. So first, let me ask, what role do you see high schools playing in this effort? And do you see a role for them?
Yeah, absolutely. There are, and maybe Shreyas knows the actual examples in your area, but high schools who operate as pre-apprenticeship programs for folks have been really successful in getting some non-college bound young folks straight into apprenticeship. And there have been articulation agreements with high schools so that the graduates have a chance at interviews with apprenticeship. Again, it takes building over time long-term partnerships with your local construction trades unions and local building trades councils.
Great. Well, I have a kind of a double header here, another question, and it's really about some examples that might institutions that are doing this. So I'll read it exactly verbatim here. It'd be great to hear about examples of institutions along with the building trades and unions that have great partnerships with high road employers. And also, are there any examples with apprenticeship programs in community colleges? So those are kind of two pieces. One is it with the supply, and then one is it with the creating that demand.
Yeah, so LADWP, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, has a wonderful program for energy efficiency, which is really different than many in the state, in that instead of outsourcing and contracting out their energy efficiency work to small businesses or even nonprofit associations, what they did was they insourced it. And so they have an internal training program that operates as a pre-apprenticeship program where they train folks on the job doing the weatherization and other energy efficiency work while they are paid. When it started about 7 or 8 years ago, it was $16 an hour plus benefits. They became union members of the local that represents the LADWP workforce. And then they were trained to either move into the utility as employees or move into a construction trades apprenticeship. And that has been really, really highly successful. We wrote a couple little articles about it. There are quite a few very good partnerships between community colleges and apprenticeship. I think I'm going to let Shreyas say which ones, but they're, from LA Trade Tech has some good ones. There's a lot in the Bay Area, and I don't want to get the name of the community colleges wrong, but I know Sheet Metal Union, which does HVAC, and IBEW. Many have their folks when they are in the apprenticeship program. The classroom training is done in collaboration with the community colleges. They even get credit, community college credit for that portion of their training. But at the same time, they're getting the on-the-job training with the contractors that the unions have agreements with. So there's many, it's not just a few. And there's also pre-apprenticeship. And there's also even journey upgrade trainings that the community college have done for advanced training after you are a journey person.
Yeah. So let me have sort of as a closing question, maybe Jordan, you can move us to the next slide so people can have Carol's email address. But, you mentioned this briefly sort of in your comments, but, this has been a year of upheaval. Equity has come to the forefront for so many individuals. We see potential challenges to the economy. The construction economy has been hit hard in the past. Is there anything you would leave us with as we're starting to go down this conversation a little bit further that you're thinking now, like with what's going on, and we're moving into 2021 and hopefully new ideas and thinking that we should consider?
I think it's really important to really digest and incorporate the idea that we have the capacity to shape what kinds of jobs are created in the economy. It's not just about preparing our workforce for whatever types of jobs the labor market provides, but we can intervene on the investment side, on the money side, on the job creation side, and we can do that most easily with our public money, from the ratepayer money to local government to state government, and obviously if we have a federal stimulus. And we have to put standards on that work, whether it be skill standards, whether it be a wage standard like prevailing wage, or all of those work kind of together in the marketplace. If you get prevailing wage, you're probably going to tap into the skilled labor produced by apprenticeship. If you put a skilled and trained requirement that requires a percentage of apprentices, then you're likely to get prevailing wage. And particularly in the construction industry, there's a high road and there's a low road. And we do have the capacity and perhaps now the political will to choose the high road.
Thank you, Carol. I think that's great. I personally feel like that's a very strong, hopeful statement that we can intervene and we have the path to actually make a difference here. There's some really great comments in the chat, and I think this is a really good last one here that David Baldwin's added. We in the building trades recognize the community college model for its great education. However, it should be understood that courses through a community college are not the same as a state-approved apprenticeship training program, which encompasses both on-the-job and classroom instruction. It is administered jointly by the employers and labor. The big difference is that the approved apprenticeship program can actually dispatch apprentices onto local public works projects. So I think that's a great final maybe word here. And Carol, thank you so much for giving us that overview. I know Carol unfortunately has to leave. She has a event, a family big birthday in her family that she is going to go celebrate. So thank you, Carol, for taking your time this morning. If you can stay on for a few minutes, that's great. And Shreyas Jakar will be filling in our panel to support some of the things that Carol has been talking about today. All right, Jordan, can we turn on to the next thing? So I want to now introduce Itzel Torres from 3C-REN and Corinne Shaw from Frontier Energy. They're going to give us a kind of taking us now right into the Tri-County and some background about what we learned there. So Itzel and Corinne, you are on.
Thank you, Mindy. I really appreciate it. So just diving into this, there is a ton of data, many ways to slice and dice, and we were fortunate enough to be working with the Economic Vitality Corporation of San Luis Obispo to source data and provide a high-level snapshot of our region's workforce today. There are many ways of defining the energy efficiency workforce. The way that we decided to do this was by developing a customized regional data set of 35 industry NICS codes that included all the jobs directly and indirectly involved in the industry, such as architects, contractors, engineers, real estate professionals, and much more for the entire Tri-County. We ran an overview data report using EMSI, economic modeling software, that aggregates state and national data sources, which includes jobs, growth, earnings, demographics, and more for Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties. These 35 NICS codes from the energy and building industry currently include or may have the potential to include skills transferable to future jobs in energy efficiency. Next slide, please. Taking a closer snapshot into the energy efficiency workforce in the region, there are currently 59,695 jobs in the Tri-County. It is noteworthy to mention that this is 15% above national average. The average earnings per jobs are of $74,098, and the annual gross regional product is averaging to $6.9 billion in the Tri-County. These regional trends indicate that there has been some consistent growth in the industry. Next slide, please. The report found that 75% of the industry is made up of males. The largest group in the industry is currently between the ages of 35 to 44 years of age, and that the largest race and ethnicity group that makes up the industry is white, followed by Hispanic or Latinx. Next slide, please. Using similar data sources, we also had the opportunity to work with Moore Park College to source data that was more qualitative in nature for the Tri-County, but also included various cities in North Los Angeles County. Some of the key trends and key takeaways included that high-risk automation occupations were identified to be that of electricians, installers, and heating and air conditioning mechanics. Low-risk automation occupations identified were architectural drafters, construction, and building inspectors. Something interesting to note was that 48% of job listings require skills in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Next slide, please. The labor and market information requests indicated in 2019 there were 371 regional completions for programs related to occupations selected for clean green jobs and 972 openings. This indicating that there is an undersupply in training programs. There is another report that we looked into, the construction industry conveying report, reiterating that there is a need of skilled energy efficiency work. There is a need for a skilled energy efficiency workforce, and all contractors noted that it is very difficult to find entry-level employees and that those who apply lack basic skills, leaving to understand that there is much more work to be done to meet the needs of our energy efficiency workforce. With that being said, I'd like to introduce Corinne from Frontier Energy, and when she'll be talking a little bit more about the Tri-County disadvantaged workforce. Thank you.
Thanks, Itzel. Thanks, Itzel. Again, I'm Corinne. I'm with Frontier Energy, and 3C-REN engaged us to research disadvantaged contractors, workers, and students entering the trades that serve energy efficiency. 3C-REN identified that its building performance training offering was primarily attracting attendees from well-resourced and larger contracting firms. And this audience is not representative of the whole workforce in the region. So 3C-REN wanted to build a skilled workforce that really reflects the region's diverse communities. And to bridge that gap, they wanted to identify who these disadvantaged workers were and what skills and knowledge they lacked to compete against better resourced contractors. And then to provide training that will help bridge that gap for those disadvantaged contractors so that they can be more competitive with the better resource contractors. Next slide. And our approach to this was to identify potential partners who could help us better understand these disadvantaged workers and their training needs. So we were able to contact 42 entities and conducted ultimately 14 interviews. And in the pie chart to the right of the slide, you can see the breakdown by organization type of who we interviewed. And then, as with every research endeavor, there's always going to be limitations to the results that you find. And for us, there were a few organizations that we had wanted to interview, but due to scheduling, we were not able to. And the great thing is that we are looking to continue this research. So we'll be reaching out to them again to try and get that additional input and further flesh out who our audience is and what they need. Next slide, please. So what did we learn from this research? First, our target audience, as you can see on the screen, disadvantaged workers in the region, and this list is not listed in any particular order, and people could be in one or more of these categories. Folks who are on the female end of the gender spectrum, coming from the Hispanic or Latinx communities, low income. There are geographic disadvantages in the region. some age-related skills gaps, and then obviously, folks entering into the workforce or small businesses that just have very limited resources. Next slide, please. So what are the trends that we saw? If somebody lives in Northern or San Luis Obispo or Santa Barbara counties, they are at a geographic disadvantage because they are further away from the large cities that are located in the South, Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo, and therefore lack greater access to the resources that are available there and in the surrounding areas. Generationally, older audiences have greater trade skills, but lack tech savviness, whereas for younger audiences, that dynamic is flipped. But across all generations, the big challenge was that they lack business management skills. So financial management, ensuring inventory and so forth. And a real key component is the timing of training to make it more accessible for these audiences. Weeknights and weekends are better times for these workers. No Friday training, and making those resources available online and self-paced when possible so that they can do the training, start it and stop it when they need to, according to their schedule. Next slide, please. And then finally, across the board, all of our interviewees agreed that basic soft skills were lacking in these targeted audiences. This includes marketing their small business, being able to sell and understand energy efficiency measures, and knowing how to provide great customer service so that, if you provide a great service, that you're also able to convince the customer to come back in. Technical knowledge, knowing when to pull permits, again, understanding really what an energy efficiency measure is, what the programs are available in California, and then circling back to business management, really understanding how to manage your business's finances, preparing for your retirement and so forth. And a real key takeaway here for this program and for any program trying to provide training in the region is that first, you have to be able to get these workers' attention. And so having a clear strategy of how to reach these different communities. There may be methods that are going to work for some and not for all. Improving that accessibility, like I said, including training that could be conducted online and self-paced. And then really hitting home that value proposition so that the contractor or that student knows why they should be taking your training, why they should be taking that hour out of their time that they don't have much time for to sit and learn and build a new skill. And with that, I will send it back to Mindy.
Great, thank you, Corinne, and thank you, Itzel. So we do not necessarily have time to have questions for that great presentation, and obviously that data is going to be continuing to grow. So if you have a question, go ahead and chat that in the chat, and Itzel and Corinne can answer that. And we'll keep all this chat together and we'll share that with folks so they can see that after the case. So there is great comments in there. Okay, so let's go into our panel discussion. And this is an opportunity for us to sort of take some of the big ideas that Carol shared to really see how it applies with the 3C-REN region. Let's go ahead to the next slide here. All right, so this is our introduction. So what we're gonna first do, and I'm sorry, we're gonna have each one of our panelists, and we'll start with Lisa. So this is a heads up to you, Lisa. Introduce themselves, and then we'll go into our question and answer. And I just wanna note everybody, at the end of this meeting, we have a speaker meet and greet, and you may not know who you wanna get to know better at that speaker meet and greet, but we would like it if you can tell us over the next 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll put you in that breakout room at that speaker meet and greet. I'll remind you as we go forward, but I just want to give you a little heads up on that. Okay, so Lisa, do you want to go ahead and start your introduction of yourself? And I just want to say that each one of our speakers, I've asked them to do on the screen just a couple little elements about how long they've been in the industry, what brought them here, and what do they wish they knew. They're not necessarily going to discuss that, but it's something for your visual interest there. So Lisa, let me turn it over to you.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Eklund, and I really appreciate being asked to sit on this panel. I have had a great career starting off in the construction industry, out in the field, in the dirt. And then the last few years, I was hired with 6 other liaisons from industry to work for the Ventura County Office of Education. So I was hired as their architecture, construction, and manufacturing liaison, and I had an opportunity to be able to connect industry with education.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Good introduction. All right, Shreyas, and then next slide.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone.
Shreyas, you just went on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Great. Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, hi, good morning. Great to be here with all of you. Shreyas Jethker, Policy Specialist for Equity, Climate, and Jobs with the State Workforce Development Board. You know, as you can see here, I've had a background working on environmental campaigns for a number of years with the Sierra Club, and that was in New Mexico, working on clean energy issues and climate policy. And in California, working for the Coalition for Clean Air, where I focus mainly on clean transportation policy and programs. But I've always had a strong interest in economic development and economic justice. And so I really have, I'm in a fortunate place where I get to sort of work on all those issues at the same time. Of course, being at the Workforce Board, our main focus is really about labor and workforce development. But hopefully, as you gathered from Carol's talk and some things that I'll share, we'll talk a little bit more about really working at this intersection of environmental, economic, and social policy to make sure that we're developing the workforce for a carbon neutral economy in California. So looking forward to the panel here soon. Thank you.
Great, Shreyas. Thank you. Can go next slide and we'll go to Celine.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to be speaking on this panel to give my perspective from the community college. So I've had over 20 years working as a teacher in the K-12 and post-secondary education. I started off with the New York Department of Education as I was going to school, grad school at Columbia University, and then I moved back to LA. And for the past 8 years, I've been working for the Ventura County Community College District. I served as a marketing outreach specialist, grant director for career pathways, and now I'm working as a job developer to help place 11,000 of our students at our college into entry-level high growth jobs. And we also have a very robust internship program. We generally enroll over 600 students yearly into our internships. And this past year, we had 68 students who enrolled in a energy efficiency related internship or pre-apprenticeship program. So thank you.
Thanks, Celine. Fabulous. And John, let's go to the next slide. And John.
Good morning, John Hughes. I really appreciate the opportunity here to meet with you all today and be on this panel. I've been in the electrical construction industry for 33 years. I started off right out of high school. I went right into construction, didn't know anything about the opportunities involved in being a union member, but I found myself joining the IBEW 3 years into that. So in 1989, I joined the IBEW. I served my 5-year apprenticeship program. Is absolutely the best thing for me. It's laid the groundwork for everything that I've done ever since. I worked about 20 years in the field. In the last 10 years or so, I've found myself in various leadership roles with my local union in Santa Barbara, Local 413. I'm currently serving as the labor compliance officer for several different labor management committees throughout the state. And we watch public works jobs to make sure that the prevailing wage, apprenticeship requirements, licensing requirements, workers' comp, those sorts of things are upheld. on projects that our contractors are competing with. And should we find any violations, we file them with the state and see them through. Unfortunately, there's no lack of work to be done there. We've resulted in millions of dollars worth of recovered lost wages and penalties and assessments. And there are lots of different folks out there within the ranks of the unions that are all self-funded to do this kind of work to make sure that public works dollars are spent responsibly. So unfortunately, there's still a lot of work to be done there, and anything we could do to help ensure that there's better enforcement on existing laws, I think the better for everybody in this high road approach.
Great, thank you, John. So Jordan, let's go ahead and stop sharing the screen so we can see each other and see our speakers as they come up. If for those who are not as savvy, there's a thing on your upper right-hand corner that says view, and you can say speaker view, and that speaker will come up as the main person. So you can see them come up. You can also do the gallery view and you can see the group of everybody here. So just quickly for all of our participants, just letting you know what this is going to do. I'm going to ask a couple questions of our panels, and then I want to see if the audience has some questions. So again, if you want to put it in the chat, if you just want to raise your hand, we can also do it that way. We don't have to just hear us. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our first question, and we're going to be a little less than 2 minutes each for this answer, and it's a big one, so you can really talk about this. And this question is, what is the biggest opportunity to create a high roads workforce, either in the state and then in the 3C-REN area specifically? And I'm going to go big and then go down to the local. So we're going to start with Shreyas on this one to give us a little sense of what we could do to make this actually happen.
Yeah, great. So I think, to sort of piggyback on what Carol had mentioned, I'm going to sort of suggest two things. One, on the demand side of the labor market. And as Carol said, this is where labor market demand is where we're thinking about jobs and the employers that provide jobs. I think, one of the biggest opportunities statewide is in the non-residential sector. As Carol, I think, laid out, the construction sector, the construction industry really is made up of two worlds. Non-residential is where you tend to have higher job quality and high road employers. On the residential side, it's the opposite. And that's a very black and white picture. It's of course not such a stark contrast, but in general, you'll see better job quality on the non-residential side. So opportunities to invest in energy efficiency upgrades in the non-residential sector, I think is where we'll really have the best opportunity to create a high roads workforce, because we need the demand side active so that there's actually a pull or there's real demand for workers to fill those good quality jobs. And I want to introduce a term called the MUSH sector, M-U-S-H, which stands for municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals. In energy efficiency, the MUSH sector is where, again, you see high job quality because, for municipalities, universities, schools, you have the application of public works law that requires prevailing wage and apprenticeship utilization and other things like that. And so I would think that, insofar as 3C-REN is developing, designing, or implementing programs, steering those to the MUSH sector as much as possible would be great, or at least just making sure that they're at a sufficient level. And then a lot more I could say about that. I'll save some more words. And on the supply training side, very quickly, just wanted to, again, go off of what Carol had mentioned, which is we are beginning to implement our High Road Construction Careers Initiative. There is about $500,000 that we're investing in the Tri-Counties region. And this initiative is really in training partnerships made up of labor, workforce, community, and other types of entities, really to deliver multi-craft pre-apprenticeship, with the goal, of course, being to place those folks in registered apprenticeship in the construction trades as much as possible. Again, a lot more to say about that. I'll just leave it with, this is, in our opinion, a systems approach to developing the workforce that can meet really any need of the construction industry, whether that's energy efficiency, renewables, transportation infrastructure, things that are paid with the gas tax. But really, it's about developing a skilled construction trades workforce, which we think is largely synonymous with developing a skilled clean energy workforce.
Great, Shreyas. Let me go. I'm going to have, just so you guys know, I'm going to go Lisa, John, and then Celine. So Lisa, do you want to start answer your thoughts on this? You're on mute. You're on mute, Lisa. You're on mute. Almost.
There we go. I couldn't find my mouse.
There you go.
You know, I think everything that all the speakers have been mentioning are needed and are great. Where I see that we can really improve is going back to where you start, and that is with engaging students at a much earlier age. The problem that union and non-union contractors have is they don't have people landing on their door that, I mean, not even aren't skilled, but want to be in the construction industry. And I think that 3C-REN can really make a big difference in being able to educate parents, educate students. They have a lot of great people working for them that can mentor, that can work with teachers with hands-on projects. And it's great to talk about all the upskilling and everything else, but if we don't start there, we're never going to get them to that point to begin with. So I agree with everybody, but we just need to back it up a few grades.
Thank you, Lisa. That's a big idea, and I think we can dig into that a little bit more. John, let's have you, and then we'll have Celine finish up on this question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think on the statewide level, the state of California, our representation in Sacramento, has really helped lead the way in creating high roads opportunities. Back in 2016, when SB 350 was signed into law, it basically prioritized resources in the energy in our energy portfolio, requiring basically to put a higher priority on projects built within the state of California. That led to millions of megawatts worth of power, solar power, to be developed in the Central Valley, which result in the majority of those, I would say 90+%, were under project labor agreements. So all of those man hours, millions of man hours, were worked with good union wages and benefits. And that really helped the local economy. It helped our build out overall for California. And we need to continue that pattern locally. Do everything we possibly can to follow that. The high road approach, the paper, the Berkeley paper from that Carol was authored, is brilliant. It really is a roadmap on what we can do to ensure that the people that are going to be part of this build out, whether it be, you know, the clean energy generation and the storage, or the electrical vehicle infrastructure that the governor has mandated essentially going into the future, all of those things are good paying construction jobs. A lot of them are electrical jobs, but not exclusively. We have a lot of work to do, as mentioned before on the other speakers, on energy efficiency projects. And if we prioritize, you know, certifications and qualifications before public dollars are spent on those sorts of things, that they have to go through a process to prove that the people that are actually doing the work and the contractors that are contracted for it are all licensed and qualified to do the work, then we'll all have an outcome that we expect. So I think there's lots of opportunities for us to capitalize on that.
Excellent, John. Thank you. That's great. Celine, I'm going to finish us off here with a minute or so.
Sure. Okay. So I think for me, as a job developer serving our South Central Regional Consortium, which includes the 3 counties, Santa Barbara, Ventura County, and San Luis Obispo County, I think that the biggest opportunity for us to overcome is the notion that building and trades is an unskilled entry-level job. So going back to what Lisa was talking about, yes, we do need to focus on targeting our high school population and our community college students. The demand from industry is constantly training people on the job to increase their employees' skill set so that they can move up their career trajectory. Today, we have in California, the unemployment rate dipped to about 11% in November, which is lower than the 12.4% mark during the Great Recession. So there are plenty of players that are eager to work in our Tri-County. We have unemployed people, we have people who are in unstable jobs, and we have students that are currently transitioning to a 4-year institution that are coming up to me saying, I think I want a career transition. I want to change my career interest in my major. So we have a lot of students that come to the Career Transfer Center that are interested in working for the environment. And I can speak for Moorpark College's campus community that the majority of our students are interested in jobs that involve lowering greenhouse gas emissions. They want to be part of the solution and not the problem. So we've got a lot of interested talent here in the pipelines. We have an opportunity to do better job outreach into our high school students, as well as our disadvantaged workers in underserved areas, to fill in jobs related to climate policy. We use effective LMI that comes from our regional centers of excellence that informs our planning for workforce development. So lastly, we have an opportunity to improve our outcomes by broadening our target population so that we can move towards the California climate change target goals.
Great, thank you, Celine. There's a question here that I want to bring out to everybody. And if there's other folks who have questions, please go ahead and put those into the chat or raise your hand. So from Diane Marin, so have we considered the existing workforce that will be displaced as a result of the Diablo closure in San Luis Obispo County? Any thoughts on that? And I don't know, we'll go my panelists, go ahead and jump in here.
Yeah, I'll take a little crack at this. You know, I think the main thing to say is that there is going to be work in the near term, in the immediate, for actually decommissioning that nuclear power plant. And there was a major agreement developed between the utility, the power plant owner, the building trades unions, community groups, environmentalists. And so it's really a just transition plan, which I'm sure is a term many are familiar with. The idea that, you know, as these high-paying jobs go away, we need to prepare for that transition, both for the displaced workers who have, of course, skills that are probably in demand. The important thing is, again, coming back to the demand side of the labor market. If we're not growing good quality jobs, there's no just transition. There's nothing to transition into. And so it's not simply training or labor market matching, which is all part and parcel of just transition. But I would say first, you know, making sure that in that region, there's development of good quality jobs that actually provides an opportunity for those workers who will be displaced and folks who never really had an opportunity working at Diablo Canyon.
Great, thank you. I think that's a great conversation piece there. And there were some great comments earlier on when Carol was talking about the wind industry and some of the other green industries that might grow in San Luis Obispo.
I want to say real quick, yeah. I think the 398 report, I want to say it's chapter 4, is about just transition. And there's a little bit of mention about Diablo Canyon and the just transition package that was developed there. So just to point to that in the report for folks who are interested in more information.
Great, and I have another question here, and I think this one is really critical. So Shreyas, you started saying that our big opportunity is in the non-residential area, but what is our opportunity for serving residential buildings? We have, you know, that is a large sector, and it's really important. So maybe I have also some of our other speakers here, but maybe you give a quick minute, and then we'll go to our other speakers on this one. So how do we get residential construction into the high roads?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's many ways at it. You know, I would point to a new program that the Public Utilities Commission is administering. It's called the SOMA program, Solar on Multifamily Affordable Housing, that came out of some legislation. In that program, trainees, there's a minimum wage established for trainees employed on projects in that program. That's a way to, again, it's not just training, but it's on the demand side, setting clear terms and conditions for labor and workforce. So it's an example when you take that, and I'll just say, I'm sorry to take up a lot of time here, but when you have a wage standard that all players are abiding by, it takes out that issue of labor costs that people are competing with one another against. So it kind of helps to level that playing field. It's a good example of an approach in the residential sector, and in this case, multifamily affordable housing specifically.
Okay, let me take it either. So Lisa, Celine, or John, do you want to add to this? And I think this is sort of the crux of an issue because, so much of our industry are these smaller construction firms, 3-4 people, creating standards that, we just saw, Prop 22 has gone down, which was, the kind of the gig worker protection. We aren't really strong about creating those standards on these larger areas. But I don't know, John or Lisa, I see you're both unmuted. John?
I'd like to jump in on that. I think I agree wholeheartedly with, having these standards in place is one thing, but having enforcement is everything. So when you're putting together these rules with all the greatest intentions, if you don't have strong enforcement behind it, it's really just kind of a feel-good thing up front. And then it's still engaging in the race to the bottom if you can't uphold that for the workers. Because a lot of times when we're talking about bidding projects, we're talking about open and free competition, whether it's in private or public works. And whatever standards that are in place, they absolutely need to be upheld. Otherwise, the bad players get rewarded with the projects. And in effect, the workers that are doing the work are the ones that are getting shorted. So I think enforcement is a key aspect to that. So whatever we come up with, whether it's the existing laws or adding some new requirements, enforcement has to be a strong component.
Lisa, do you want to add to that? And you're out there and you've been doing this work. What is your sense on this?
I personally feel that you're going to have players on both sides that are not going to play by the rules and not serve their employees well. And there are many employers down here, many contractors down here that participate in public wage or public work jobs. They are not union. They have employees that have been with them for 10, 20, 30 years. So I think we're really talking about creating values, and I believe that that's done through education. I don't think it's done through a specific group of people and with more enforcement. I think setting standards of what should be expected, that's what we should be setting for people to strive towards. And for prime example is I used to work for Lenore Construction, and over 15 years ago, they're doing third-party inspections, just as they are now with all the different energy efficiency and different programs I've gone to. So they are out there, and they are out there in numbers doing really good jobs. So I think to just say that one side's doing a better job than the other, that's not true.
Mm-hmm. Celine, did you want to add anything to it?
I agree with both John and Lisa. I think enforcement and standards are really both very critical. What I am seeing from my perspective is that many of the mom and pop shops in our tri-counties, I think the frightening concern is that they may lose productivity when they send their employees off for training. That's why I've been reiterating in the past that we have such a robust internship and pre-apprenticeship program. We have the supply. We have a lot of students that can fill in those positions as their existing employees can get the training that they need to reskill and upskill. So we leveraged our robust internship program to really support those small firms that are struggling right now.
Thank you, Celine. Yeah, that's that. I mean, I think that there's my next question on this is there's a lot of barriers to this. We've been talking about these high roads for a long time. And so we're just talking about, we've hit on a lot of really interesting pieces about how we need to engage with the parents and educate with students. But can I ask my panel this time, what is the first thing you would do? So let's get down to feasibility. We're going to make this happen. What do we need to do? What is the first barrier we need to drop here to actually make the standards actually happen? Because we can talk about standards, but how do we actually get them in the place? So, maybe Celine, I don't know if you are okay going first, and then I'll go down my list again here.
Okay. Well, I have lots to say, but I'm just going to boil it down to a few points. Well, first, I think we need to get the parents to learn about these occupations in the building and trade sector. I think Lisa brought that up in the beginning, and I think many of you probably know that too. So it's not just about students and our existing incumbent workers, but we also have to expose our parents to these new occupations. And we have to bring in the community colleges. We have to develop more relationships and stronger and better relationships with our local community leaders and union leaders. And then industry needs to reevaluate their approach to their field post-COVID. So what I mean is they need to look at how we retrain employees, and all the community colleges, we are currently working on offering short-term stackable industry recognized credentials that'll get incumbent workers and traditional and non-traditional students to provide them with job access ready jobs. And I just wanted to bring up one more point. Through Dave Teasdale, he's our regional sector director on Prop 39 grant. And so he helped us define alternative energy in our county, which is what led to the creation of our heating and environmental control systems program at Oxnard College. We're rolling out in about literally minutes a solar program, a non-credit solar program at Moore Park College. Ventura College developed a water science, wastewater management program, and a diesel program came from Prop 39. And you ask, why diesel? Well, the diesel industry has a lot of potential because they're talking right now about cost-efficient vehicles. How can diesels be less damaging to our environment in our counties? And VC also created an electrician trainee proficiency award that would lead to a construction management program. So the colleges are repackaging the building professions degree with stackable certificates. And we're also looking at the intersections with ag program and our water science program and developing an industrial maintenance technician program.
Great, Celine, that's awesome. So let me go, Lisa, John, and Shreyas. Lisa, do you want to ask this question? So we have all these barriers. What is the thing that we should try and hit first to try and get over this and get to these hybrid jobs?
Absolutely. I definitely think it's relationships. I think it will take all of us to get to where we're going. Construction is, at the center of all of this. So it's going to take union, non-union, parents, educators, and there's just not one way, once again, to do these things. And I think with standards in place, I think we need to open it up where there's a little bit more diversity. I think the robust curriculum should be what leads the way, and that there are, the ABC, which is the Associated Building and Contractors, they also have an apprenticeship program. They also have a crafts training program. It's the exact same curriculum. They test out the same as the union. And I just think that we're in a time of being entrepreneurial. So I think, setting those standards for yourself and being responsible for yourself, along with bringing the industry up, is education and communication, and the collaboration between everybody is going to be able to break through those barriers.
All right, thanks, Lisa. John, what about you?
Well, I have a different perspective on that position. I'm thinking, in order for us to all come together and come up with joint resolutions, it needs to be a joint effort. So for labor to collectively come together, to be at the table with employers to come up with solutions, is a formula that works. The unions out there, the IBEW and others in the building trades have proved that time and time again. I work for a labor management committee that does joint efforts that are industry-based solutions. Labor compliance is just one of them. So I think inclusion for the laborers jointly, so we don't have unilateral decisions, is super important in order for us to achieve those goals. I think, I agree with the messaging, starting with the high schools and letting the parents and the students know that there's opportunities, viable career path opportunities, and not just short-term construction jobs available for people that want to make a living doing this. I've been able to do that. I know hundreds of people have been able to do the same sort of thing. To be able to work an entire career kind of beats you up in construction, to be able to have health insurance, good health insurance, not just for the worker, but for their families, to also have money set aside for retirement so that you can retire with dignity and you don't become a burden on your children in your retirement years. These things are really crucially important to workers when they're choosing their career paths. And quite frankly, there's very few opportunities out there that can parallel that, to go through a school like 5 years of electrical training and not come out saddled with debt. Just go roll right into a good paying job with these sorts of benefits are important. And the messaging aspect is important. It's also important that we all recognize in the transition to clean energy that there are a lot of people that are gainfully employed in the oil and gas industry in these 3 counties. And in many ways, they feel threatened by the rollout of clean energy. So they also need to understand that this is the future. And also the clean energy promoters need to understand that fossil fuels aren't just going to turn off like a switch overnight. So there is a transitional period, and we need to be able to support the cause and be able to work on projects that are in the traditional forms of energy, but also aggressively moving the ball so we're not dependent upon it. So I think these are a lot of things that we need to focus on in order to get there.
Yeah, thank you, John. That's great. Shreyas.
Yeah, well, I think I'll just echo, I also wanted to hit on relationships. And, for us, one of the key practices of the high road approach to workforce development is emphasizing training partnerships that, of course, deliver programs, but it's really an emphasis on the partnerships, not the program. And, as I think Lisa and John just mentioned, it really does take a variety of folks to be involved. And at the same time, to be strategic about these partnerships, making sure that employers, labor, local government, local workforce boards, community colleges, adult high schools, et cetera, and community groups. I think maybe I might hit on that aspect since I don't think we've talked about it much. In our High Road Construction Careers Initiative, again, focusing on delivering pre-apprenticeship, when we think about increasing access to pre-apprenticeship, which is a great on-ramp, much needed on-ramp to apprenticeship in the trades, we need to bring in folks who have trusted relationships with the populations we intend to reach. And community organizations have time and time again proven that in our training partnerships, they really provide that vital access, doing effective targeted outreach and recruitment, making sure that the supportive services that people facing barriers to employment, understanding their needs, understanding who provides those in good quality, those are essential. And also making sure that there are community interests. The other aspect is, well, anyway, we'll save that for another question maybe. But yeah, just emphasizing community-based organizations and their role in training partnerships, I think is really important to address equity.
Great, thank you. I think those are really critical pieces. So moving we're getting to the last bits here. So just a little reminder, if you're going to be able to say for the network or the speaker meet and greet, make sure to go ahead and chat to Edgar which room you would like to be in. But let me ask another question that was asked, and I'm going to broaden it. So this is Eric. He wanted to ask about where can our CCAs, so our community choice aggregators, do to help in this. And I'm going to add in, what can the REN do? So we have CCAs and we have the Regional Energy Network, both using ratepayer funds, industrial, sort of these public funds to do work in the Tri-County. What is their role? How do they actually do something about this very aggressively? Let's see, anybody want to volunteer to start off on this one? My panelists? Lisa, all right, great.
Well, I would like to say that you just have such a great and diverse group of contractors and architects that work for you. And I have connected the Ventura College, which has the architecture and construction program. And we are looking at being able to have guest speakers be able to come in and speak to these students via Zoom. This is a way in which to have them hear from people in the industry, and really helps them also get that part of networking, so that when they are ready to go out and get that job or go out and find a mentor, They've had access to different people within the community. And I think that I think that just the group of people that you have that are in the industry and the outreach that they can do to not only the architects and contractors that are already existing, but our new students that are coming up and going to be looking for those jobs. It's a good way to connect.
Excellent. Celine, do you want to add as a sort of local gal here also?
Yep. I think I'll just piggyback off of what Lisa said again. You know, within the community colleges, faculty are already working with industry in redesigning and rebuilding new curriculum, non-credit curriculum, short-term sequence of courses, you know, whatever. But I think it's really important that our faculty really connect with the employers, because that partnership is critical in terms of getting the incumbent workers, those that are unemployed, our traditional and non-traditional students, to get them on that pathway of this career exploration and awareness. So faculty are now doing externships, learning new emerging technology. We recently, our county developed a very strong EPA agreement with the Navy. We have, the Navy is the largest employer in Ventura County, so it just made sense. So they have multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment that are, that really are in energy efficiency, and our faculty are engaging with these employers. So it's really about our college reaching out to our local community organizations and leaders to support this new California code.
Great. John or Shreyas, do you want to start off with, you know, what do you think the CCAs or the 3C-REN can do here?
I think the CCAs, starting with them, as they start rolling out in California, becoming more prominent, they just need to be mindful that they're entering into a market that's well organized, and the traditional, the IOUs that are out there, Edison and PG&E, their employees are all organized. They're all have good paying wages and benefits, whether they're the guys out on the lines or they're the people in the office doing payrolls. Everybody is well represented. Everybody goes to work in a safe environment. And I think the CCAs need to adopt labor standards in their governing documents. Some have, some haven't. I know Peninsula Clean Energy, stand by here. I know Peninsula Clean Energy in San Mateo County has good labor standards, actually published in their governing docs. I believe the Clean Power Alliance out of Los Angeles actually does. I don't know that they have labor standards at the moment, but they do a scoring system for their RFPs. So when they're looking for projects, labor is one of the standards, the scoring marks that they have. So it needs to be addressed every time they're taking into consideration whether they're building a project or they're buying into a long-term power contract, that labor has at least a consideration in that decision. So those sorts of things I think are really important going forward.
Excellent. And Shreyas, I want to move to you here, and then I think we're going to have, we're close to, we may have time for one or two little questions after this, but you talked about your mush, and I think that's really interesting here, because with both CCAs and RENs, municipal buildings, schools, and universities are kind of in their world, but I don't want to take over your answer, but do you want to talk a little bit about what you think might happen, and maybe it's connecting to that, to the mush?
Yeah, so I think, to set reality aside for a moment, I think, there's, and to maybe dream for a second, I think the pandemic has actually created a really unique opportunity. There's, it's sort of this opportunity and crisis moment. Deep energy efficiency retrofits are the best way to, of course, maximize the employment outcomes of energy efficiency investments. The more work you got to do, the more workers you need to do it, of course, and the deeper energy savings, cost savings, and everything else that are the obvious benefits of energy efficiency. Cities, counties, schools, as they are sitting vacant, what better time to go in and do deep energy efficiency work? I say I'm dreaming because who's going to pay for it? Our state, and I imagine our local governments are strapped for cash. No real end in sight in terms of that situation and outlook. And so, of course, we have to be serious about what the opportunity is there. But I think bringing people together who are in local government, in the school districts, employers and workforce professionals and others, to maybe take a look at what is the opportunity in the Tri-Counties region. And of course, this equally applies statewide. I think, again, hospitals, of course, would be the one that I would leave off that list, since unfortunately the cases are starting to spike again, and we don't have that sort of vacancy right now. But trying to blow insulation into walls or other sort of deep green measures, those are easiest done when buildings are vacant. And so just something to explore. Yeah. And perhaps folks already have been looking into that. And maybe I'll just also end with kind of tying to what John said about labor standards and thinking about CCAs or 3C-REN. The reason to hit on this, and sorry if it sounds like a broken record, but if you are in the position of putting out funding, you are in a unique position to set the terms and conditions on how that money is spent. Nobody else really gets to do that. And so, and we already do this, right? There's great precedent. We don't just have greenhouse gas emission reductions magically appear, right? We have laws and mandates and regulations that make that so. We don't just have environmental justice. We're not just, addressing inequities in the environmental sector. That doesn't just happen on its own. You need deliberate interventions to do so. And so, there is the precedent for doing that. And again, for those who are administering these funding programs, it is probably the only thing, well, let me rephrase that. It's the thing that nobody else can do. Right. And not to say that you're on your own. I would offer the Workforce Development Board. This is part of my job as a policy specialist, is working with the Public Utilities Commission, the Energy Commission, other sort of grant-making entities to figure out how they're addressing job quality and job access on the investment, so that climate investments, broadly speaking, are paving the high road.
Well, and I think that's a really important thing. And I still think there's this tension here. There's $1 billion plus that we spend in energy efficiency ratepayer money that goes throughout the state. And how are they getting to our residential contractors? I still think there's a challenge there, and where is that connection? So I think that's work to be done. But let me ask, and this is a final question. You guys have about a minute each, so that's it, just a minute. We're going to keep it tight and short, which is, one of the things that has come up as we've been planning for this thing is whether or not we should be focusing on existing jobs and greening those, or new jobs and bringing people into the trades. So quickly, I'm going to go through my crew. Give me a quick answer. So I'm going to go with Celine, and then Lisa, John, and Shreyas. And then also make sure to put your networking room in on the chat. So Celine, 1 minute.
Can I go second?
Okay, you can go second if Lisa doesn't mind going first.
I don't mind going first. I would say no on the coming up with new jobs and greening. And not to sound like a broken record, but I just finished doing research for Dave Teasdale, the Energy, Utilities, and Environment Director up at Kern County. And out of all the contractors that I was actually able to interview, because they're all so busy, all of them said, I need people to come to me with skills. So I really think it's important to be able to, like I said, get that into the schools when kids are younger, and actually even before a pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship, offer internships. So when they hit the ground with a contractor, they're ready to roll.
Awesome. Okay, Celine.
I'm ready. Okay, so my answer then is it's not up to us to create the new jobs. It's our responsibility to make sure that we're in touch with the industry, and our centers of excellence and our research analyst who's on this call right now, they provided me with very comprehensive labor market information. The supply, the demand is definitely there in our Tri-County region. It's just that our supply is lacking those skills, the technical and soft skills that are needed to fill in those positions.
All right, so let's see, John.
No, I would definitely support, enhancing and improving existing apprenticeship rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. Modern apprenticeship has been around for, 70, 80 years or something to that effect. It is a proven mechanism. What we need to do is, continue the messaging, like so many have said here today, starting earlier the better, to let people understand that there are opportunities in construction where they can actually, buy a home, raise a family, and be comfortable.
Definitely hearing that. That's right. Shreyas, give you you get the last word here. I gave you the first, now you get the last.
Thank you. I would just support that, as others have said, focusing on existing occupations that are in demand. And when it comes to, sort of new jobs, I think, this is why training partnerships are essential. Sitting down with employers who are actually going to be hiring, and listening to them about what their needs are, what the skill needs are, what the hiring needs are, then you can right size and develop a training program so there are pathways up and into those new jobs, but not doing that in a vacuum, of course, but with employers to really understand what is the demand for labor. And I would just echo what John said about apprenticeship. Part of the high road model is building on what works. And apprenticeship is the best pathway to good quality jobs in the construction trades. But we need on-ramps like pre-apprenticeship.
Well, thank you so much, every one of you. That really has been a very dynamic and exciting panel, and so much more to learn, and obviously work to do. So I don't think we're going to be lacking anything on our plates in the short term. So Jordan, let's go ahead and get back to sharing our screen. And get ready again. If you want to have some more questions for our panelists, you can have the meet and greet after this, but we're going to go to our closing with Sean Burns from the 3C-REN team. Sean, are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right.
Hey everyone, my name's Sean Burns. I'm a program specialist with 3C-REN here in Santa Barbara. And before we end the event, I want to take a quick moment to share a bit about 3C-REN's full portfolio of programs. Next slide. You'll see an evaluation poll on your screen. There's a few questions. We'd love if you fill that out as well. Our programs include Energy Code Connect, Building Performance Training, and Home Energy Savings. Next slide. All right, first, home energy savings. Home energy savings serves households that have been historically underserved in our region, including residents whose primary language is not English, low-income households, rural communities, and renters. Home energy savings offers flexible options from simple and free upgrades like LED lighting and smart thermostats to discounted upgrades that provide greater savings, such as replacing water heaters and other energy-intense appliances, insulating your homes, and HVAC testing and diagnostics. Home energy savings goal is to save you money, make your home safer, healthier, more comfortable, and more resilient. Next slide. Second, Energy Code Connect. So Energy Code Connect serves all building professionals, offering services for plans examiners and inspectors to architects and contractors for both residential and non-residential applications. Energy Code Connect offers 3 services: our Energy Code Coach, which is an online, over the phone, or in the field service to help navigate the complex and ever-changing energy code. Training, including a variety of courses taught by expert instructors that specifically address California's energy code and green building standards, and regional forums like this one, quarterly events that provide an opportunity for our professionals to come together, explore aspects of the energy code relevant to critical issues facing our region. So Energy Code Connect makes the energy code easier to use, understand, comply with, and enforce. And finally, building performance training. Beautiful. Building performance training serves current and prospective building professionals, entering the field like architects, contractors, real estate professionals. And as we, Corinne and Itzel touched on earlier, our focus is really growing to better assist underserved and disadvantaged workers and those looking to enter the industry, as well as those who have been in the industry and looking to up their skills. So building performance training offers expert instruction covering a greater scope than Energy Code Connect, including both technical skills like building science principles and soft skills like sales and marketing and communication techniques to grow your business, and certifications for professionals looking to build their credentials. And as the industry evolves, to address and provide solutions to climate change and affordability, again, we want to equip both new and longtime workers with the skills to get started, stay up to date, and add value for their customers. Next slide. And to access all of our services and to learn more about our programs, visit 3C-REN.org. You can view our training calendar, send a question to the code coach, or review eligibility for home energy savings upgrades. Next slide. All right, lastly, I'd like to let you know that the slides and recording for this event will be sent to your inbox shortly, along with a quick survey, and we'd appreciate your input. For anyone that did provide their AIA or ICC numbers, we will send you a confirmation of your learning credits for today's event. And once again, please visit our website, that's 3C-REN.org, to learn more about us and access all of our services. I'd just like to give one last huge thank you to all of our incredible speakers today, including Carol Zabin, Lisa Eklund, John Hughes, Shreyas Jatkar, and Celine Park. Round of applause. Thank you so much. I'd also like to thank our 3C-REN team, including our facilitator, Mindy Craig, our presenters, Itzel Torres and Corinne Shaw, John Greaser, Jordan Garbayo, and everyone else who made this event happen. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for joining us this morning, for bringing your great questions and contributing your thoughts to this important discussion. Please do stay on the meeting. If you're joining the speaker meet and greet, we've got your breakout rooms ready. We'll get that rolling in a few minutes. Otherwise, have a great day, folks. We will see you soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. So if you want to stay on and you didn't pick a room, that's okay. We can do that manually.